We're a little discombobulated today because we're in a different studio, but we're confident we'll pull off some version of this show.
It's nice to see you again, Ann.
I was here last week. But it's 100 degrees out here in New York, so we're just sweating continually.
No, wait a minute. You did it from home last week? StreamYard.
Oh, that's what you mean by seeing me. I get it. Okay.
But don't get too excited. We may be on StreamYard again next week, and I think Chris Cooper
will be here next week. Yes, I'm taking a week off.
Chris, don't you? Yeah.
We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup, and we're back in the studio.
And how are you, Ann?
Well, I have finished my radiation treatments to review. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in March. I had a double mastectomy in April. Everything fine. Then I've just had 25 radiation treatments, which was a little tedious. I have a chest that's a little burned from that, but that will heal. Some little pockets of fluid, but they will be drained as soon as the chest heals because they don't want to stick needles in me while I have a radiated chest. And then I move on to pills. You may have heard of tamoxifen. They have newer versions now, but I'll go on a couple of pills that are preventative. And everything's going swimmingly, if a little slowly for my taste. My radiation oncologist said to me yesterday, as I was asking for drainage, she said, "Be patient, slow down." And I said, "Have you met me?" But everything's going well.
You are impatient for justice.
I am, and for everybody to be healthy. And I played in a little golf event this weekend that was one of these Play for Pink events that are fundraisers for breast cancer research. And I asked the person organizing it if I could get up and talk for a minute or two. She said, "Oh, that would be so great. No one's ever asked us that before." So I just got up and said, here I am. And please, take care of yourselves and get tested. So I'm just, Joni Appleseed, spreading the word of testing everywhere.
And I'm back in the studio because prior to this, I had this damn cough that I needed the cough button for on StreamYard, but I think I'm over it. Okay.
And that is the Gay USA medical report for this week.
Okay. In the news, well, right after celebrating Christopher Street Liberation Day and the Stonewall Rebellion, the federal Stonewall National Monument is having already erased trans people from their site, erased bisexual people as well, only to make a partial restoration.
Are we headed back to the days where everybody is just gay?
Oh, well, like Gay USA,
yeah,
your
exactly.
Your LGBTQ news source.
Exactly. To be continued. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has resumed processing some anti-trans discrimination complaints.
But the gay Secretary of the Treasury stopped processing complaints of anti-LGBTQ discrimination at his agency.
A prominent San Francisco drag performer, Hilary Rivers, was abducted by ICE.
You saw that Trump was attacking Rosie O'Donnell. Well, she gave it right back to him.
A bulletin from the ACLU advising trans, non-binary, and intersex people who want passports that accurately reflect their gender identity to apply now before Trump again cracks down on that.
last week we told you about Baylor University taking a grant to make people feel more, LGBTQ people feel more welcome in religion. Well, they just gave it back.
Never mind. RFK Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, is backing off preventive health care, which could include PrEP. You know, they've had this big breakthrough on 2 shots a year for PrEP. Even though the Supreme Court has ruled that his preventive care health panel does have the right to require it.
Well, of course, his panels, you can't trust.
No.
Now, we're going to mourn the loss this week of a pioneering gay TV producer and friend, a beloved lesbian poet, and a non-gay lawyer who took up our cause in 1971. And I should say the producer was Joe Lovett, and you just saw the opening of our show. That was produced by Joe Lovett.
We threw him a lot of tapes and clips, and he fashioned them into what we think is an excellent opening sequence, which we've been using for years, and we love Joe. A gay couple has been legally recognized as family by a court in Ukraine.
In the midst of war, and a UK man was paid compensation after being subjected to conversion therapy in an Anglican church. So
more on the Anglican church as we go along.
So, we start off, I mean, I keep saying that we should end federal involvement with the Stonewall National Monument. We worked very hard for it, but they are now erasing us from history. They did it with trans people on their website. This is ridiculous. And then they were caught taking out bisexual references on the website, and they restored some of it, but they didn't restore all of it. I mean, this is nuts. We don't want them in charge of this thing. Get them out of there. Frankly, I don't know if I'd trust the city or state government. Just let it be run by the people.
Well, that would be nice. So their references are now to gay and lesbian people or the Stonewall community. And I am predicting that under the Trump administration, we are all going back to the 70s, and it's going to be the gay community.
If only. I think we're going back to the 1500s.
Well, that too. All right. Well, the Trump administration has been very busy this week, so maybe we should run through.
Since we just talked about the Stonewall, can we just say, we got a Pride recap from the Human Rights Campaign, and there were record-breaking crowds across the country in many places. They had the largest Pride ever in Anchorage, Alaska, at their first ever Pride in Huntersville, North Carolina, and Decatur. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
Indiana. Crowds also absolutely smashed records in St. Petersburg, Florida. And there's other places around the country. This is all very encouraging that people are turning out.
Yes, because we've seen things like a record turnout in the Democratic primary for mayor in New York City.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of demonstrations taking place across the country. But as we try to put together that, I reach for words, the large mass of people required to make change in this country to stop Trump, well, we have a sense it's growing, but we don't know for sure. So to have prides suddenly be producing these huge crowds is very reassuring and very heartening.
I thought we were a little smaller in New York this year, but we're out in the streets all the time.
Including tomorrow.
Yes, July 17th is in the evening, early evening. There are demonstrations across the country. If you want to find one near you, these aren't gay specific. Just Google 50501 and the name of your town and see what's happening. We're going in New York to Foley Square wearing white.
Okay. You got that message. I haven't gotten it yet, but I have white. I can wear white.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, I am struck and despairing about the fact that the Health and Human Services Department has rewritten federal sex ed teen pregnancy prevention program guidelines. They will no longer allow any mention of LGBTQ people in this, no mention of masturbation or penetration alternatives. They say that this favors parents' religious beliefs teen pregnancy prevention.
Some parents' religious beliefs.
And grantees under this program must submit revised plans for their programs by October 1st. Now, this is one of the most effective programs the federal government has ever.
Can you just refuse the federal money and do your own thing?
Why not?
Because they're cutting the education department anyway.
Exactly. Well, this is HHS, but yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point where no one is going to want any federal money because there's so many strings attached, and people are saying, look, Joy Behar on The View this week said, I'm just giving my money to the state, and not that you can get away with that, but let them administer it. The federal government is just throwing it away on these religious mandates.
Well, the Equal Opportunity Commission, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, is reportedly resuming consideration of discrimination cases brought by transgender people after a months-long pause, where they first said they classified such complaints as meritless.
Mm-hmm.
So they seem to be responding to the Supreme Court decision, Bostock, which said discrimination on the basis of being transgender is sex discrimination.
We have no idea how they saw the light on that, but it is heartening. But of course, at the Treasury Department, the out gay secretary, Scott Bessent, yes, is reportedly removing any sexual orientation or gender identity protections from employees there. And the whistle is blown on him by a gay former employee, Kristen Boaz Hayes, who told us all about that happening.
That doesn't mean you can't still sue the department for discrimination, because it is illegal to discriminate on the basis of an employment of sexual orientation and gender identity.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on Supreme Court decisions. Let's talk about Rosie O'Donnell. You read, Trump needs a distraction from the Epstein scandal. So he vowed to revoke Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship, calling her a threat to humanity, which is threatening violence. So she shot right back. She posted a picture of Trump and Epstein. And wow, what she said.
Well, she said, hey, Donald, you're rattled again 18 years later, and I still live rent-free in that collapsing brain of yours. You called me a threat to humanity, but I'm everything you fear. A loud woman, a queer woman, a mother who tells the truth, an American who got out of the country before you set it ablaze. You build walls, I build a life for my autistic kid in a country where decency still exists, Ireland. You crave loyalty, I teach my children to question power. You sell fear on golf courses, I make art about surviving trauma. You lie, you steal, you degrade. I nurture, I create, I persist. You are everything that is wrong with America, and I'm everything you hate about what's still right with it. You want to revoke my citizenship? Go ahead and try, King Joffrey. That's a
Game of Thrones.
Thank you. With a tangerine spray tan. I'm not yours to silence. I never was.
Even Ellen DeGeneres, and they don't get along, Rosie
No, they
and
do
Ellen,
not.
issued a statement of praise for her. And at this point, I imagine the talk in the White House is, how can we pin the Epstein scandal on an illegal immigrant, a transgender woman, a pro-Palestinian activist, NATO, the Fed chairman, or Black Lives Matter?
Or Rosie O'Donnell.
And it is nice to finally see terror. He is sweating about this after inflicting so much terror on the rest of us. Claire McCaskill said, there are more pictures of Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together than there are of trans athletes in the NCAA, by multiples.
Yeah, he hasn't figured out a way to get out of this yet. He's doubling down on his attempt to convince people that
we'll release whatever's credible.
Yeah.
Biden wrote the report. So the Trump administration is telling organizations working, we did that one. He's got another nominee, Paul Ingrassia, his nominee to head the Office of Special Counsel. This, I will just use the word advisedly, punk 30 with virtually no legal experience is being given this high-profile job. But he's virulent. He's anti-gay, of course, but he's a virulent anti-Semite. So they started putting out. CNN investigated this. They said, he's so anti-Semitic. They said, oh, he's very backed by the big Jewish organizations. Oh, which ones? And they said to him. So the reporter called them all. We never heard of him, they said.
Well, he's 30 years old.
No, and then they started getting back to him. Oh, Chairman Trump wants us to support him, so some of us do support him.
Well, here's another one of his statements. When he was 6? He's too young for any of this. He believes that the descendants of slaves should pay reparations to the descendants of slave owners.
Well, this guy...
Because they lost their property.
Hey, that's pretty much what happened in Haiti after, they got rid of the French. Anyway, he's been on the legal team for Andrew Tate, who's that horrible misogynist.
Yep.
It's just insane.
Yep.
And yet this is what you're getting in your government now.
Yes, it is. Also, and of course, Trump is reaching out to protect and support his old friend Bolsonaro in Brazil by threatening these huge tariffs on Brazil. How does he think he has the right to do that?
Your coffee is going to be going up because he wants to protect that monster Bolsonaro.
I'm going to stock up on coffee this week because they're closing my Western beef. So I'm going to go in there. I'm going to get like 20 blocks of coffee. They all go in the freezer.
All right, very disturbing story. A San Francisco drag performer and community member who performs under the name of Hilary Rivers was detained by ICE following his asylum hearing in an immigration court last week. We're not going to give the legal name, as a gay immigrant from Guatemala who had a pending asylum application.
It's so disgusting the way they go to these court hearings where people are showing up legally for and honorably to report to the court on their lives, and the ICE guys just pick them off.
Well, yes. What they've done, though, is you go in before the judge, and all these judges are thugs now, who essentially...
Not all of them.
Well, I'm talking about the immigration judges. Your case is dismissed. You're not like, we're going to hear it, we're going to continue it. Your case is dismissed. So then when you leave, they just grab you. Even if the case is not dismissed, they grab you anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Nazi stuff.
Well, I'll give you one good judge. The Department of Justice asked a judge to let the government deny passports with X or non-binary markers on them and they said the judge should allow this because of the Supreme Court's decision in the Scrimetti case.
Yes.
Because states are allowed to forbid medical care for trans kids, the government should not allow X or non-binary markers on passports. So the judge refused to go along with that, saw right through it, and said that is unconstitutional animus.
Yes. A 24-year-old trans woman from Mexico who was arrested by federal immigration agents outside a Portland, Oregon courtroom last month has been released from detention after a federal judge ruled that her arrest violated her constitutional right to due process. She had fled, Mexico 2 years after she said cartel members raped her because of her gender identity. And she followed all the legal requirements, and this is the first time they've invaded the courts in Portland, but it's coming with all these people they can hire with $170 billion. This will be coming to a courthouse near you.
ICE is also evidently targeting sex workers. They are arresting and disappearing sex workers who are getting not a lot of community support, maybe because people don't even know this is happening, but they are disappearing off the streets into the arms of ICE. Okay. And of course, Trump has said ICE agents can protect themselves with any means necessary, which means shoot everyone around them.
Well, ICE is also, is no longer, they no longer require fair treatment for trans people in these detention facilities.
Exactly. That was a headline this week. They will not, of course, recognize their preferred pronouns. They will not put them in any situation where they're safe, and we're starting to hear about trans people in ICE custody who are getting beaten by other people who are in custody. Really bad.
3 cheers for a Catholic archbishop. In San Bernardino, the fascist ICE abductions of immigrants there, many of the people here legally, has instituted such fear that the Catholic bishop, Alberto Rojas, of the Diocese of San Bernardino, is advising immigrants not to go to Sunday Mass. Don't go. I imagine they can stream it for them and things, but when you get to this point, you know, where is the uproar from? Because we're not hearing this from Cardinal Dolan or anything in New York, but well, I mean, he has been critical of some of Trump's policies lately. Yes.
Okay.
Well, because he was cutting off Catholic charities in some cases. But 3 cheers for Bishop Alberto Rojas.
Yes, thank you. All right. Another charmer in the Trump administration, the chair of the Federal Trade Commission, a guy named Andrew Ferguson, is holding anti-trans workshops for his employees. Now, look at him there. He looks like he's trying to look like J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
That may be the thing.
They're looking into fraud and deception in medical treatment.
Well, that's
basically.
Their definition of trans, fraud. You're a liar.
Yeah. Describes gender-affirming care as rife with modern snake oil salesmen. Claimed families are being lured by the promise of a fail-safe cure for mental health problems, and on and on and on and on and on. But all the major medical associations are, you know, American Academy of Pediatrics, AMA, all these things, they all affirm gender-affirming care.
Yeah, but this, it's turned into a bullying situation. Hospitals are shutting down trans care in many places across the country, even where it is legal, because they have been threatened so desperately by the administration.
Well, shutting down trans care, I mean, July 17th, which is tomorrow for us here today, they're shutting down the special number where you get access to gay services when you call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
Yes.
So there was a demonstration. We have a picture of that. This is the who did this? The communication workers of America. Because they're unionized workers who handle these calls. They gathered outside Trump Tower on Saturday afternoon in a very passionate protest against these cuts. And this is getting a lot of national attention because it's so heartless.
Yes.
You know, one of the commentators said, look, when a veteran calls, they get connected to the special veterans line because they get specialized care. But they just don't believe we exist. So at this point,
well, they believe we're fraudsters and liars.
Yeah, but this is for trans people, but it's also for LGBTQ kids. It's
LA Children's Hospital is stopping trans youth care after 30 years based on the Tennessee decision by the Supreme Court and federal threats to cut all funding. And Louisiana is cutting off Medicaid reimbursement for all trans care for gender-affirming drugs. It's just a domino effect across the country because of these threats, because Trump, unlike anyone before him, is not afraid to just to throw the entire book at people, at states. He's not saying, I'm going to cut off federal funding for this. He says, I'm cutting off the entire state's federal funding because you let a trans athlete compete. That's what and California is now suing him for that. But that's what he's doing. He's just unafraid.
The right wing's not going to like it when President Zoran Mamdani tries to do this when he's president, or AOC.
The DOJ is subpoenaing records of doctors and hospitals treating trans youth on the grounds that these are fraud investigations.
Right. All right. The ACLU has issued an update guidance to trans, non-binary, and intersex people who want to get passports that accurately reflect their gender identity. Their advice: do it now, because they've got a little opening after a Massachusetts court decision where they can do this. On July 2nd, the government finally released a new attestation form that includes an X marker designation because they were under court order. But we'll link to this guidance in our email.
But meanwhile, in Massachusetts, Harvard, after getting so many kudos for standing up to Trump, has now buckled and is shutting down websites for women's centers, LGBTQ centers based on race. It's all gone at Harvard. And of course, yes, the Supreme Court okayed the destruction of the education department. That's going to be gone. And another idiot that Trump is hiring. You see, this guy is going to be the ambassador to Malaysia. He's a Hooters-loving alpha male.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are the qualifications you have to be, because, Trump felt in his first term, he hired all these people he felt that he had to hire to look credible and be a good president and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't obey him. And so now he just hires thugs. I mean, don't forget, he's even broken with the Federalist Society, which picked all his judges before, and they're all right wing. Some of them have ruled against him because they can only go so far.
It's time to get to our favorite story of the week, which we have buried in the first 24 minutes of the program, and that is what's going on in Texas.
Oh, yes. Okay.
State Senator Angela Paxton.
There she is with her husband, Ken, the Attorney General of
who
Texas.
She is filing for divorce from on biblical grounds, whatever that may be.
I believe marriage is a sacred covenant, and I have earnestly pursued reconciliation. But in light of recent discoveries, I do not believe that it honors God or is loving to myself, my children, or Ken to remain in the marriage. Now, what God has joined together, Angela, let no one put asunder. But
guess who he blames? Us.
Oh, come on.
Pressures of public life have led him to his because we've been going after him.
Yes.
So that led him to his recent.
Well, of course, he's in the midst of a challenge to Republican Senator John Cornyn, giving him a primary, trying to move Texas even farther to the right.
And Paxton's leading in the polls because Cornyn is regarded as mealy mouth, whereas Paxton is a good, strong right-wing nut.
Well, but they overlook all these things. Look, they've elected this monster Trump, who's thrice divorced. The first president ever to be elected who had a divorce was the right-wing Ronald Reagan.
Yes, and that has led us down a terrible path. Not the divorce, but the right wing. So we're getting our popcorn and watching how the Paxton situation
Well, no, we
plays
can't
out.
Because they're selling everything on the case.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Perhaps there will be leaks.
Yes, we hope from Angela. We want to hear more from Angela.
Yeah. Well, she was the one who sort of supported him when he was under attack within the legislature, and they were going to convict him of something, and she remained silent.
Now, if you have a student loan, and who doesn't, basically, if you're under the age of 40 these days, they're changing the rules. You used to be able to engage in public service, and you could get it, some of it ameliorated.
Yeah.
So the new guidance is that the program aided activist organizations that harm national security and American values. And if you engage in programs like that, engaging in illegal discrimination by providing gender-affirming care for those under 18, your loan is not going to be forgiven under these new rules.
They're just running wild, and no one's stopping them, or very few.
That's right.
Sorry to see that Daniel Hernandez lost the primary in Arizona.
He came in third.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
He ran as a moderate.
Okay.
I mean, we like him. He was the aide to
Gabby
Giffords, who got shot.
Yeah. And he helped save
when she
her.
got shot, right?
Yeah. And he's held other
We like him.
elected office. So,
like him.
yeah,
Uh,
I'm sure he'll keep trying. Also in Texas, back to Texas, headline, never mind. We were surprised to tell you last week that Baylor University had gotten a
big Christian university.
big multi-million-dollar grant to study the better inclusion of LGBTQ people in religious life. And when people noticed that and started yelling at Baylor, they said, we're giving it back.
Baylor applied for the grant.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
Yep.
But what did they say?
They did. They solicited the grant. They've taken other grants from this organization, from this foundation. It was supposed to be for advocacy for perspectives on human sexuality. They said it's inconsistent with Baylor's institutional policies.
Well, I said last week, I mean, they hadn't changed their position on sexuality.
Exactly.
I mean.
Well, we were shocked.
Yes.
Gratified, but shocked. And now we're not shocked and not gratified.
We're sorry we ever said anything nice about you.
Yes, exactly.
And we don't want Bishop Rojas to disappoint us either down there in San Bernardino. All right. Okay.
Interesting information from New York State, Department of Health survey. There are, according to CDC statistics, 1 million plus LGBTQ people in the state of New York. I think they're all in New York City.
No, come on.
Yeah.
We are everywhere.
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood won a round in court this past week. Federal judge blocked temporarily the Trump administration from borrowing Medicaid funding from Planned Parenthood. And this is very important to everybody, but especially LGBTQ people. It'll remain in effect for a little while before they get permission to start blocking it again from the right-wing Supreme Court.
In Pennsylvania, Democratic representatives in the legislature there in the Education Committee blocked a Republican bill to ban trans female athletes from school sports. And a small town in Pennsylvania, Collingdale, passed the most comprehensive non-discrimination bill, including people living with HIV, non-binary people, intersex, on and on and on. And they're protected in employment, housing, education, public services, and healthcare. Thank you, Collingdale.
In an Arizona school district, a teacher named River Chinui.
I don't know. I found only one local news report about this, and the anchor struggled with the pronunciation.
This is in the Peoria Unified School District. This is back in 2022. River sent out an email and telling fellow staff members how they could support trans and non-binary students on the International Transgender Day of Visibility. Boy, did they get in trouble. Though they sued and they were ultimately cleared of any problems because basically two board members had it in for them. Mm-hmm. And so Chinui has won their case. And said, thank you to these board members for radicalizing me into this kind of work.
See, that's what happens. Very interesting. A couple more Pennsylvania stories. In Pennsylvania, a guy known as the Angry Gay Grandpa was fined $17,000 for gluing his hand to a handrail in the state Senate building in support of trans kids. Also, he has stage 4 cancer, but he's out there supporting trans kids, and he got fined.
Thank you, Grandpa.
Yes. And in Pittsburgh, the city council passed 3 bills to preemptively protect the right to gender-affirming care, the right to ignore anti-LGBTQ bills, and lowering penalties for sex workers. Pittsburgh.
But in Louisiana, trans people will no longer receive Medicaid reimbursement for any gender-affirming care prescriptions if their provider uses gender-related diagnosis codes, according to multiple LGBTQ organizations.
In the Bronx, New York, Justin Sanchez, the former president of the Stonewall Democrats, has won a city council seat.
This was an open seat. All right.
And do we want to say anything about Andrew Cuomo running still for mayor of New York?
We have a Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani, very exciting, got more votes than anybody in the history of the city of New York in a primary. And Andrew is going around saying, I just wasn't aggressive enough against him. I'm running as an independent. It's pathetic. I think he's just a glutton for punishment. And they will spend hundreds of millions, literally hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars.
Well, clearly,
trying to stop him.
Clearly, the big money people are out there desperate to stop Mamdani. So Andrew's happy to scoop up that money. And actually, I'm thrilled because he'll split the vote with Adams, and it'll help Mamdani.
If Adams isn't in jail, I mean, I know Trump stopped his case, but there are more coming.
Cuomo says this thing about, I like the idea of the other independent who says, let's take a poll in September, and whoever is ahead can run, and everybody else will drop out. Don't hold your breath.
Okay. Puerto Rico, which has long been regarded as a leader on transgender rights, is facing a big possible rollback. There's a bill in both chambers, now just passed in both chambers, awaiting the signature of the governor, Republican governor, to criminalize parents and doctors and cut off medical support for the island's trans community. It's just awful.
All right, shall we go to some sad news? In Ohio, a gay man has been charged with murdering his partner, who was a local drag artist. Not a happy story.
This is
in Ohio.
Yeah.
And in D.C., trans woman Kayla Calhoun, who fled Alabama because Alabama seemed too dangerous for her, moved to D.C. and was brutally beaten by a group of men at the National Mall.
Right. A couple of D.C. stories. The police in D.C. are hunting for the murderer of 28-year-old Black transgender woman Dream Johnson. This was on July 5th. Witness saw three men approaching Johnson, called her a derogatory name, leading the witnesses to believe the men saw Johnson as transgender. And also engaged in overkill. They're offering a $25,000 reward for any information on that. And also in DC, a transgender girl who was housed in the male unit of the DC Juvenile Detention Center has been hospitalized. This is DC, supposed to be so liberal. Sustained multiple injuries, including a broken jaw. 5 teens have been charged with violations related to the assault, but they said, this is an isolated incident. Well, it's not going to be isolated if you keep putting trans girls in with the boys.
Yeah. All right, so shall we remember some of our heroes who we lost this week?
We should. Joe Lovett, who as we told you, he was a big TV producer and documentary maker, has died at the age of 80. He's the guy who did the opening of our show. But what Joe is really most sort of...
That's him on the right with his partner on the left.
His husband, Jim Cottrell.
Yeah.
So when he came to, well, first of all, he's been a producer in network news since the 70s.
Yeah.
And in 1977, he did a piece on the parents of gays, in 77 on network TV, and very famous. And then we come around to the AIDS crisis. And in 1980, the network news is doing nothing on AIDS, nothing. And he does this is Hugh Downs in 1983 doing a segment on AIDS. And this was so groundbreaking and really shattering. Producer Joseph Lovett. And then show the next picture. Geraldo Rivera was the correspondent. I think he did a great job on this, and he really went after government inaction and all that. And then show the next picture. This is a guy named Kenny Ramzour, the good-looking guy. And when they showed this next picture of Kenny, he comes on the thing. He's totally disfigured by Kaposi sarcoma. I was in a room with like about 15 gay men. We're all watching this. We're all excited to watch it. people just gasped. I mean, we knew AIDS was spreading. Things, but you didn't see too many people.
Well, 83 was relatively early. Had they even named the virus at that point?
They didn't even know what caused it in those days. So this, and he also shamed the New York Times for not reporting on it. Mm-hmm. And one of the people in the piece was Anthony Fauci. Another one was Larry Kramer. Mm-hmm. We are going to link to that. It's only about a 9-minute or 10-minute piece, but we're going to link to it in our email. Watching it again was just something. Brought back a lot of memories. But he also, founded Joe Lovett Productions. He did a lot of things on AIDS after that. He did things on cancer. And his first feature film was Gay Sex in the 70s, where he went back to talk to people before. How are you having sex before AIDS?
Right. It was all putting in context the epidemic and life before and after. It was very smart, very insightful, and a really, really good documentary. If you have a chance to watch Gay Sex in the 70s, it's not just exploitative sex. It's a really deep investigation of how the world changed, really admirable. And he was losing his sight over the years, and he did a great documentary called Going Blind, based on his own experience with losing his eyesight. And then he did Children of the Inquisition, which was about, when was the Inquisition? The 15th century or something in Spain?
Well, he was Jewish, and I'll be going to the Shiva for him. Although he did once tell me, he said, when I had my bar mitzvah, you're 13 years old. I confessed to the rabbi. I said, Rabbi, I don't even know if I believe in God. And the rabbi said, oh, Joey, nobody does. He was very funny. He was very funny and warm and a terrific guy. Okay. All right. So we are going to link to that AIDS piece. So
and because he was so good,
yes,
that's why we turned to him to do our open.
Yes.
And we're very proud of it. He did a great job, and
he was a pro. You will always be with us. Okay. What's?
Keep on. I'm trying to fix something. So.
Okay. All right. All right, boss. Okay. We also lost Andrea Gibson, an author, performer, and activist known for their spoken word poetry, died July 14th after a 4-year battle with ovarian cancer.
49 years old. In Boulder.
Yeah. Surrounded.
Really legendary poet and performance artist and activist. That's her on the left with her wife there on the right, Megan Falley.
Died surrounded by Megan, 4 ex-girlfriends, their mother and father, dozens of friends, and their 3 beloved dogs.
Talk about a lesbian death.
Well, author of 7 poetry books, won a documentary that they're featured in, Come See Me in the Good Light, about their experience with cancer, won the Festival Favorite Award at the Sundance Film Festival in 2025.
She was the Poet Laureate of Colorado for the last 2 years. And Governor Jared Polis spoke very movingly about her. She really was a legendary figure and really mourned.
In a poem that Gibson wrote shortly before they died, titled Love Letter from the Afterlife, they wrote, "Dying is the opposite of leaving. When I left my body, I did not go away. That portal of light was not a portal to elsewhere, but a portal to here. I am more here than I ever was before."
And that documentary that was such a hit at Sundance, Come See Me in the Good Light, will be on Apple TV later this year.
Okay. And then we lost a real veteran, 90 years old, Hal Weiner, not a gay guy. He was an early legal advocate for gay people in New York. And what a story.
Yes.
Hal is sitting there. He's a young lawyer. He's representing sex workers at the court. And one of them turns out to be Sylvia Rivera, the famous Stonewall
veteran. You never know who you're going to meet in court.
And Sylvia says, yes, I'm a sex worker, but I wasn't engaging in sex work in Times Square. So I was soliciting signatures for the gay rights bill. And Hal goes, well, that's a First Amendment case. Your Honor, gets her off. on that basis.
Of course.
And that connects him to the Gay Activists Alliance. He goes on to represent Gay Activists Alliance. You know, they kept him on a retainer, represent Gay Activists Alliance members whenever they were arrested, either for ZAPs, demonstrations, or getting caught having sex in those days. And also got them incorporated. And that is an epic story of trying to, because when he actually got the Attorney General of New York on the line, who said, sodomy, you're for sodomy? I'm not certifying this. I'm not giving you incorporation papers. He went to court and so cleverly got this done for the Gay Activists Alliance.
He converted from Judaism to Episcopalianism at some point.
You know.
As a social justice warrior. He became a tour guide on New York City tour buses and a street photographer.
And when activist Mark Siegel, who we all know, got arrested for disrupting Walter Cronkite's show, CBS Evening News, he represented him in court over that. Yeah. Survived by his wife, 5 children and 5 grandchildren.
So three really enormous people.
I mean, I'll tell you, sitting and, you know, we have to gather all this for you every week. It's painful. I mean, to sit there and, you know.
But heartwarming to read about and to know some of these people who really were such important, large figures. So that I liked about it.
Okay. Now, we told you, I'm going to international news?
Yes.
So we told you how Budapest Pride was such a breakthrough. So many people came, many non-gay, to protest the government. So in the European Parliament, the vice president there of the EU Parliament, Nicu Stefanuta, spoke out against the critics of
Green Party guy from Romania.
Pride.
This is ridiculous. This is bullying behavior. And I'm looking at you. They are your kids, your neighbors, your friends. This is the people that were there. Is it so hard to love your own? Is it so hard to love your own people? It is incredible. It is incredible. This is what the extreme right does. They push you down the stairs and then they ask you, where are you hurting? They play the victims. This is ridiculous. This is bullying behavior. And in front of bullies, there's only one answer. You need to stand proud. This is what I saw in Budapest. I saw proud people, free people. Büszkék voltak, mert szabadok voltak. They were proud because they were free. I saw people who had no protection, but they had their hearts with them. They had their kindness with them. They had a voice which was forbidden. And no, Mr. Orban, nothing was shameful. Nothing was disgraceful. On the contrary, it was something to love. It was something to watch, and your heart was filling up. So be proud, people of Hungary. Be proud, Mr. Korachony. Be proud because you showed Europe that you love freedom.
Hear, hear.
It just reminds me, you know, you look at Hal Wiener and what he did 55 years ago in New York, and how this movement has spread worldwide, and how this message of freedom and pride.
And I know we're you know, there's a retrenchment going on in the United States, but I'm glad that somebody from Romania is standing up for us.
The Archbishop of Canterbury may defer to a rotating leadership of Anglicans to avoid schism.
Yep.
The Church of England Synod meeting now has canceled a 1991 document condemning ordination of LGBTQ people. That document said homosexual practice is especially dishonorable.
Yes.
And they've gotten rid of that.
You used to have to sign that. It was a way of keeping gay people out.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, a gay couple was recognized as a family legally for the first time. A district court formally recognized same-sex couple. There they are. Zorian Kiss, who was the first secretary of Ukraine's embassy in Israel, and his longtime partner, Timur Levchuk. They've lived together since 2013. They got married in the United States in 2021. Yeah. So that's real progress.
Zori, I can't read my own handwriting, is the first secretary of the Ukrainian embassy in Israel.
Yes. Okay.
In the European Court of Human Rights, Caster Semenya, the track star, the court said she did not get fair treatment by World Athletics, where she has been banned because of having too high a testosterone level. So they sent the case back to the Swiss court. She's not competing currently. She is coaching because she refused hormone blockers. But
She
her
says
case
it's a
continues.
battle for human rights now. It's not about competing. It's about putting athletes' rights first. It's about the protection of athletes. The UN has compiled a draft report that uses pseudoscience to wrongly claim that transgender acceptance erases the legal category of women and their gender dysphoria is somehow socially contagious. Now, I talked to my friend at the UN. He said, yes, she's in charge of this office, but it's got to go all the way up the line, and don't expect it to be adopted later.
In Germany, there's quite a bit of turmoil because right-wing groups, which are very active there, neo-Nazis and the AfD, are threatening prides all over Germany, and a lot of prides are being canceled for fear of violence from these neo-Nazis.
In the United Kingdom, a gay man named Matthew Draper, he has received damages from the Church of England parish that subjected him to an exorcism to rid him of the demonic possession of homosexuality. It's believed the first time compensation has been paid to someone who experienced conversion therapy. And this was by a church. This would never happen in this country.
Well, it's in Sheffield, which is a more northern and conservative area of England, the St. Thomas Philadelphia Church. And he submitted a formal complaint and got a 5-figure settlement.
He was told that sexual impurity had allowed demons in his body, and he had to break agreements with Hollywood and the media that led him to his ungodly lifestyle. These people are nuts.
Well, you think that's nuts. Also in the UK, a woman has sued because she says that crosswalks on the street painted in the colors of the trans flag, the pink and blue and white, are violating her religious beliefs.
Back to England again. A resident of the London borough of Camden has threatened to sue the local council. Show this picture. They have these crosswalks.
As I just said.
Oh, sorry, you did that already.
Yes.
All right.
But we didn't show the picture. I don't know if we can.
Okay. I've been by those crosswalks, and I've seen many religious people crossing them. All right. Back home, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is asking governors in all 50 states to remove rainbow crosswalks that were installed to celebrate Pride, saying without evidence these are unsafe to traffic.
They'll say anything. Can we move on to?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, the big news this week is that the Congress has managed to restore $400 million in funding for the PEPFAR program.
Yes.
After Trump wanted to cut it. Great. Yes, they need it. I'm all in favor of that, but I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact that becomes that we can rescue that, but everything else is just going by the wayside.
Well, this was something promoted by Collins and Murkowski, getting it back there. PBS and NPR are still being savaged. But
yes, although someone said they've managed to rescue a little funding for rural NPR.
$9 million for the tribal lands.
Yeah.
All right. So
nice piece in the Times this week about legendary South African AIDS activist Zaki Ahmad, who's back in action after all these cuts and threats, and another story about Uganda struggling.
So, we told you about the Supreme Court decision that said these preventive health care panels that are run by HHS, they're okay. I mean, they're constitutional. So what is Kennedy doing? Now that he's got the power, he abruptly canceled a meeting with the federal task force that helps determine which preventive health measures must be covered fully by insurance companies. So that raises a lot of concerns about all the things that are covered, including PrEP.
Yes, and they're predicting with these cuts that there will be more criminalization of gay men, drug injectors, other vulnerable populations, because they think treatment is supporting, again, fraudsters and liars and criminals.
By the way, Trump's comment on all the UN AIDS money,
Yeah.
being cut and all this stuff being cut, he says, well, I want to move towards a thing with Africa of trade over charity.
I would hit my head against the table, but I value myself too much.
Okay.
All right. Entertainment news.
Back to the Frontier on the Magnolia Network.
Well, the Magnolia Network is a new network started by Chip and Joanna Gaines, who
Good Christians.
former stars of HGTV. So one of their shows on their new network is Back to the Frontier, where three families live. This is not an original idea. Without modern conveniences like electricity. So put that picture up again.
One of the families is Jason and Johanna Riggs, who are both men, and their twin 10-year-old sons, Ethan and Lucas. So this made right-wing heads explode because they figured that the producers were godly people, and then now they're not. Now they're questioning it. The lovely Franklin Graham, who was obsessed with homosexuality, said, "Promoting something that God defines as sin is in itself sin."
Well, he said, you got his other thing there where he says, God tells us to love everyone, but part of loving everyone is telling them God's truth, which is that they are sinful perverts.
So Chip Gaines, who is the producer, is standing up for the same-sex couple. He said, look, talk, ask questions, listen, maybe even learn. Too much to ask of modern American Christian culture? Judge first, understand later, never. It's a sad Sunday when non-believers have never been confronted with hate or vitriol until they are introduced to a modern American Christian.
And that is a theme that has run through this show for 29 years.
Yes.
The current version of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, this current cast, not the originals years ago, but the current cast has been doing the show for 10 years. Which surprised me.
Why haven't we had them in to fix me up?
Or me.
Well, I'm not a straight guy, but
that's why, Andy.
I'm a bit of a stiff when it comes to fashion.
That's a discussion for another time. But anyway, they're now filming their 10th season, and it will be the last. For this version, who knows what they'll come up with subsequently.
By the way, it was Lou Maletta, our founder back at the Gay Cable Network, who put me in a jacket. He says, I want you in a jacket and tie. And I've worn it ever since, pretty much.
And he would appear on the show every week.
In spandex and a cowboy hat.
And a little leather.
Which he wore all the way through when we were driving through Mississippi on the way back from New Orleans, covering the Republican convention.
He didn't just wear this on the air. He wore it on the street.
We went into the Hardys in Mississippi, and I didn't think we were coming out alive because the place fell entirely silent. Not just spandex and the cowboy hat and all that stuff, but a big gay T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, Lou was quite a character, and we have a few seconds, so let us remember how much we appreciate Lou, who was a man ahead of his time. He really decided 40 years ago that the gay community needed a news outlet because none of the mainstream news were covering us. And they certainly do more now, but we like to think we're still a little more sophisticated or in-depth than them. So we continue on.
That's why that Joe Lovett piece was so important in 1983. But the next year, Lou Maletta starts producing for the next, several decades, Gay Cable Network.
Yeah, but he thought he'd be rich off it, and he wasn't, so he quit. But we sit here still not rich, but happily conveying the
Thanks
news.
for being with us.
Yeah, we'll be. Actually, I will not be here next week. Chris Cooper will, and I know you'll enjoy him. And I'll be back the following week. I'm just taking a quick break.
Thank you all.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Just looking to see what changes. Oh.
Well,
We done? I hope so.
I think so.
All right.
Yes. All right. Promo.